Okay, we're going to get started. There's a few more people still trying to join, so if you hear a funny noise in the background, it's people requesting to join us. But hi everybody, thank you so much for joining me. This is BSME webinar number 9, I think, that we've run over the last 2 years. It's the first one that I've done from home, because like many of you, unfortunately, we found ourselves back on distance learning recently here. What we thought we'd do today is something slightly different. Up until now, these webinars have been very much me talking and a guest presenting, and really not giving you guys the opportunity to interact with each other. And we thought we'd try something slightly different with today's webinar. It's the first one of a new year. Obviously, we've all returned back to a variety of different teaching circumstances, and I thought it was a really good opportunity for us to have the opportunity to interact with each other, to have some discussions, to share some of our experiences, and really just take some time to reflect and to consider your situation against other people within the region, and perhaps come up with some things that we have in common at the moment, and really just build a conversation to support each other. Because let's be honest, if you're anything like me and you're sitting at home, you're probably not having those opportunities to interact with colleagues as much as you would be normally. So with that in mind, please, if you can you turn your cameras on? Please do interact. Please do either put your hand up or just jump in. Give us your thoughts, give us your opinions. Let's have a discussion. If you don't want to talk, if you'd rather just add your comments in the chat, then the chat is recorded, so everybody else can read it, and anybody viewing this afterwards will be able to read your comments as well. And all of your comments are really valuable. It doesn't matter whether you're at a huge school in Dubai or a smaller school in Saudi or wherever you are. Your opinions and your thoughts are just as valid. So please do take the opportunity to engage with PE colleagues from across the region. So what I thought I'd do to give this some structure is to really just ask 3 questions of all of us, and I will give you my reflections on each of the answers from our perspective here at Brighton College in Al Ain. And then I'll open the floor to you guys to give me your thoughts and your reflections, and see whether there's some common ground amongst us all. So I'm conscious we only have half an hour to do this, so I'm going to get straight on. So my first question to all of you is how is your PE life currently? There's a lot of discussion currently amongst PE teachers on social media about the challenges that they're facing. Obviously, a lot of that that I see is sort of UK based, but I know there's conversations going on across the world about the PE that we find ourselves delivering and the contexts and situations in which we're trying to do that. For me personally here, I think that PE for us in Abu Dhabi is currently as challenging as it has been at any point in the last 2 years. We are finding that having gone back onto distance learning, the levels of engagement and apathy are a concern to us, and we are having to try and find really unique, new, dynamic ways to engage with our pupils to keep their levels of interest up. They obviously had a long period of distance learning and have now had a second significant period, having been back in school, and life pretty much went back to normal. And so we're finding it a real challenge to keep the pupils engaged and motivated whilst they're on distance learning once again. And the other issue that we really have is there is no definitive end in sight. We haven't been given a definite date when we're going to return to college, and so we have to keep doing this relatively indefinitely, and for us that's proving a real challenge. So that's where we are. That's a very honest opening point. Does anybody want to jump in and tell us about your current experience of PE in your area? Mohammed, you were first in. Go for it.
Hi everyone. Nice to see you here, guys. Okay, these 3 weeks are like online in Abu Dhabi. I'm working in Abu Dhabi, by the way, Al Basma British School, Abu Dhabi, and 3 weeks gone online. But hopefully next week, I'm not sure what my head said. Maybe next week we will come back, but we won't have PE lessons outside. We'll have inside the classroom. You must be aware, like last year, whole year went like that, and it was very tough. I don't know what are we going to do this time if we'll be inside the classroom. It's difficult to handle these children, those who want to play. It's really hard. So,
Yes, absolutely. And it would be interesting to know if there are any of our colleagues that are in that situation currently. So they are in school, but they are perhaps not delivering PE the way that we would hope to be delivering PE. So if any of you are in that situation, it'd be really good to hear from you and what your experience is. Matthew, go for it.
Yeah, that's been me for the past 2 weeks now. And basically, playtimes are allowed to happen in the school, but PE has to stay inside, which is a little bit contradictory. So we're finding that we go into our lessons, we teach, like, say, for example, it's the Winter Olympics. So we've got scheme of work theme of the Winter Olympics, at least until the 4th of February when it's on. So it's going to be continual. If we get outside, then things will change. But currently, it's kind of like brain breaks in class that last up to 20 to 30 minutes. And the second half of that 55-minute block is the content, just because if you give them more work to do, they're going to be disengaged. So it's finding that kind of balance. So we find that, 25 minutes is the best short burst of energy, and they're more receptive to our work afterwards.
Matthew, is this the first time that you've had to do this particular type of PE? So in school, but in classrooms?
The start of coming back to school last year, we did classroom lessons, but they weren't anywhere to the scale of what we're doing now. It was kind of, we'd take them for a walk around the school, bring them back to class. But because they're concerned about the groupings together, walking is not allowed either, but they walk to play, they walk to other subjects. So in the KHJ, have got kind of a different model for PE that we just got to respect for these next 2 weeks, and hopefully things will get easier.
Fingers crossed. I think we've all got our fingers crossed, haven't we? Sally, you've got your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
Sorry. Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi.
Hi. I'm at Doha College in Qatar. So similar to you, really, we're also on remote learning at the moment. And as it stands, we're going to be remote until the end of January, till the 27th of January. So I think, as you say, I think it's been difficult to switch back to remote learning. And I think probably one of the biggest challenges for us all is the fact that there's been so much uncertainty. You're not quite sure what's coming next. And that makes planning ahead, even medium-term planning, really, really challenging. I think when you're leading your team, you're not quite sure whether to sort of leave it till the last minute or plan for all eventualities. I mean, I think I'm very lucky that I work in a very supportive team, and we're always sort of pulling together. But it feels like PE's perhaps been impacted more than any other subject in terms of change and challenge and uncertainty about what can and can't happen. So we're not sure what's coming next. I think the one thing that we have learned and become much more confident about is delivering our live lessons remotely, and we are primary specialists. So if you'd have asked me 2 years ago, sort of engaging primary age children in an hour-long remote lesson, I'd have said no way. But actually our engagement and the children have been absolutely amazing. And it is only our second week. So it'll be interesting to see what happens sort of in week 3 next week for us. But it's been fantastic. And I think you just got to adapt. You've got to adapt and recognise that they've all got different amount of spaces, different equipment. and keep encouraging the parents to support as well in terms of sort of some very basic equipment needs. But for me, it's just about keeping these kids going, and PE actually is one of the subjects online that can be delivered, getting the kids active, and it's something that they really enjoy. And I think the fact is that the participation rates have been high, and that they all do look forward to it, even though it's far from ideal. That's
a really positive story, though, isn't it? And I think we would all agree. One of the really interesting things that we've discovered is that activity is activity, and we're a through school, so we have junior and senior, and up until this point, we really wouldn't have considered using our primary material that we created that had huge take up. And real enthusiasm with our secondary pupils, because we considered them slightly differently. And actually, this time round, what we've realised is that, especially for middle school in our senior school, they're responding really positively, even if we give them slightly more primary designed activities, because at the end of the day, activity is activity, and they just want to have a bit of fun. So, yeah, I completely I hear exactly where you're coming from. The experience of primary, I think, is a really positive thing, and one that we can translate up into secondary school, certainly to a certain point. Hi, afternoon, BSAC calling.
Hi guys, my name's Sophie. I'm head of senior PE at BISAC in Saudi. So ours has been a little bit different to all of yours experience. We've had primary lessons online since March 2020. So we haven't had the primary school kids in on full-time basis. We've only had them in on support days, maybe once or twice a week, but maybe that doesn't fall on a PE day. So we don't always guarantee we'll have our class once. They have 2 lessons a week, so once or twice a week. So it's been really challenging for us to teach online for the primary school for that whole time. They are in from Sunday full time, thank goodness. But delivering lessons is going to be tricky, because they are going to have to adapt from that online experience into real life experience. We've already come across, when they've come in for support days, that, I mean, I don't blame them, but they won't shut up. They just continually talk. And I said to my class today, for example, I was like, guys, I can't just mute you now to make you be quiet. You do have to be quiet. So I think getting them back into a routine of learning in school is going to be a challenge, more than necessarily what we're delivering. We've luckily had the senior school pupils in from September, but we really had to initially adapt what we were teaching to no equipment, social distancing. That started to ease off, so we could deliver an almost regular program. But the level of the kids is a lot lower than what we were hoping. So, year 9 are being taught year 7 schemes of work, really, because they just haven't been able to keep up with what they should be at home. So we've been the kings and queens of adapting, making the best of the equipment or space that we have here, and for the children at home, making the best of the situation when we've got the kids in. So yeah.
But it's a positive, or you're moving towards a positive conclusion, aren't you, over there in Saudi? And fingers crossed it lasts for you and you don't end up back in our situation. Adam, you raised your hand next. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Adam. I'm the head of PE at Al Muna, which is a primary school in Abu Dhabi. And I'm saying again what we said. I think we're so much more ready for online PE lessons, particularly for primary, than we were obviously before all this started. I think the trouble for us is the lack of knowing what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So when we first got told, for 2 weeks, that's great. Do some really good fun activities online for 2 weeks, the best of the best that we've had from before. And then it's like another week. And then is it going to be another week, or is it going to be back in school? And then even if we do go back in school, is it going to be restricted, and yeah, I think it's just really difficult at the moment to plan ahead. So we've gone for the lastminute.com kind of planning, just because I'm sure the restrictions will come in if we do go back anytime soon.
Yeah, and that story, Adam, is probably reflected across a lot of us. So we certainly did exactly the same. We cherry picked the best things we did from last year, and we said, right, we're going to have 2 weeks of real fun. We're going to repeat things. We're going to do things again, and then 2 weeks turned into 3 weeks, and yeah, suddenly became a bit more of a long term. Okay, we're going to have to start.
Which is fine. If it's a long term thing, then you can put together projects or long term goals. But when it's kind of week by week, it's kind of just almost just getting through each week, which is not really ideal for anyone.
No, absolutely. Well, absolutely, and that the big unknown, isn't it? It's just give it. Ideally, we would get some kind of clarity for the next few weeks, and then at least we can plan. But who knows? I have an unknown person with their hand up. So if that's you, jump in. I haven't got your name on the screen.
Sorry, I think that might be me. I don't know. I'm Tom. I don't know why the name.
You're unknown, Tom.
Yeah, I suppose echoing everyone else, really. I'm in Abu Dhabi as well, and we've just had the school closure for another week, and we planned all the fun activities. And I think what we were finding at the start of the year is we managed to get a bit more engagement in PE. It took the children a bit of time to get used to being back in PE and bringing up levels of fitness and just being prepared and having the right equipment. And that was, I suppose, a success story, that it was going really well. We almost went back to just normal PE with a bit more distancing and sanitization and that sort of thing. But the challenge we've got now is it was still, especially with the older students, their level of fitness and coordination, I think someone was talking about it earlier, is certainly dropped. And their level of engagement with the distance learning for us anyway, the secondary students, has been quite poor over this 3 week period. So that's the big challenge, really, I think, is to get them, even when we're back in school, our older students engaged fully with it and throwing themselves into it, and just hoping we are back in school so we can do that. Otherwise, that's a huge challenge, keeping them engaged. I think like someone mentioned earlier, we have tried to use some of the more primary-based stuff, which has actually worked quite well. But it's even getting them in the call can be quite a challenge. So, yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. No, completely. And hopefully what everybody is hearing, and you know, the reason that I wanted to start with this particular point was we're all still experiencing this together, and even though we're all stuck in, you know, our spare rooms talking to a computer once again, we're not on our own, and you know, lots of us in lots of different countries are all going through very similar experiences once again, but this time round we kind of know what we're doing, and I think that's a real positive. So nobody's panicking. No one that's spoken in the last 10 minutes is panicking about this. We've learned to be flexible, and we've learned to adapt, and I think that speaks volumes for us as a group of educators and as a subject area, that we have been able to just roll with the punches that probably have been heavier than in lots of other subject areas. Okay, so I'm going to move on, and we're going to be really positive now for the next few minutes. We're going to be super positive, and we're going to share those things that we feel have been really successful. So we know there's been lots of challenges, and I'm sure when we move on to what are your biggest challenges, you'll all have lots of things to say. But what are the things so far this academic year that have gone really well? So for me, the biggest success that I feel we've had has been with our academic PE. I know that's a very secondary school thing, and it doesn't necessarily apply to everybody on the call, but for us, our ability to blend the online and face-to-face bits of our GCSE and BTEC, we do BTEC here, has been a real positive, and feels like we've made quite significant strides forwards in terms of delivering those courses in a really modern way. So we've got pupils online, offline, in classes, but they're still still learning, still doing activities, still really engaged, still making progress. And for us, that's been a real positive. So Christina, you've got your hand up. Do you want to share your positives with us?
I think my positive was more from the lack of engagement online, because I felt that as well. Especially, I teach purely female secondary PE, so that has its maybe challenges in normal life anyway. So their engagement online was quite limited last year. Then this year, when we've come back and got to relatively normal delivery of PE in Abu Dhabi, I found the engagement in my practical lessons was more than what I'd experienced before. I think because of their deficit there, I think they missed actually being together and having a normal PE lesson of, let's play basketball, let's play netball, and athletics and things like that. So I rarely got, well, at the moment, let's hope it stays that way, I rarely got, a note to miss PE, or I don't have my PE kit today. And also I think, well, this was just a benefit of logistics. They had to come into school in their PE kit because we didn't have changing facilities, and they prefer wearing their PE kit all day. So it was sort of a win for me as a female PE teacher, with sometimes that can be a challenge. So I took that as a win from COVID.
No, absolutely. And again, I can echo that. I mean, obviously, I only teach boys, so I'm the opposite. But the desire to want to do it increased when they came back to face, because they had missed it, and it's only when you take something away from somebody that they really realize the value and the importance of it to them. So we had huge take up. I mean, our ECAs were through the roof at the start of the academic year. The student voice was all about more, because they realised what a big part of school it really was. And obviously, then we all went back online. So let's hope we get the same thing happen again. Anybody else want to jump in? Give us your biggest successes. Sally.
I think just thinking outside the box and thinking creatively, really. I don't know whether it's been stricter in Qatar than the rest of the Middle East, but we haven't been able to mix bubbles at all. So they've just been within their class bubbles only. So we've done some inter-house indoor athletics challenges, for example, where they all and everybody took part. So it was inclusive, and they were all involved as sort of not just competitors, but as officials and coaches as well. And that worked great because they all submitted their own forms, and we did it as an inter-house competition across the year, even though they were only doing it in their own bubbles, and across the whole of Key Stage 2 as an inter-house competition, and that worked really well. And I think the other big plus has been the importance really socially of PE. And somebody said earlier about sort of how chatty the kids have come back into PE, and that's fantastic. And whilst you've sort of got to try and manage that, you also want to encourage it as well. And similarly, to begin with, it was social distancing, but we were still trying to come up with sort of some creative problem solving, OAA type activities with social distancing, where they still had to collaborate and work as teams and have that really important social interaction, which I think they'd all just missed really so much, and such an important part of PE.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting. I was on another webinar recently, and we were talking about how the way we've been forced to socially distance has led to a real phase of creativity in terms of the type of activities that we're providing, because you take away a huge amount of what we would class as our traditional go-to PE when they can't go near each other. And so we've had to be really creative, and I know from our experience we've introduced activities that we simply wouldn't have had space in the curriculum for, and I think that's a real positive, because hopefully some of those activities will stick, will become ingrained in our provision, and it sort of helped us shift a little bit away from that traditional, very sporty type curriculum. I mean, we're not that type of we don't deliver that type of curriculum anyway. But where we were offering full lessons in a particular sport, if we can't deliver that sport, then we've had to be much more creative in terms of still delivering those learning experiences. So I think, yeah, that's a really big positive. Amber said, I'm assuming, Amber, you don't want to turn your mic on and talk to us. But Amber put in the chat that, yes, again, core PE, academic PE, it seems to have been a real positive for lots of schools, and it's forced us to embed technology into what we do, which has got to be a good thing because of the world that these pupils are growing up into. Matthew, you've got your hand up. Do you want to join us?
Yeah, my experience has been a bit different because in this term we've managed to get back playing fixtures. They look a bit different from normally. So, for example, like back in the day, we all used to go to one central tournament. We all play each other. There'd be a winner, there'd be a loser. It'd be tiered. Now it's kind of like in the UK where you have local schools playing against each other in like friendlies, and those friendlies all happen at the same time, and then they're put on like a database and they go from there. So in regards to track and trace, it's really easy and really simple. And it's just that liaising with the bus companies to make sure everything's okay from there. But what we found is that's been really successful up until Christmas. Then we've come back and we've been hit with this. So when we return back to fixtures again, it would be kind of in that kind of process as well. So just have a think, who's around you, who can you play with? Maybe not even a British school. It could be an Indian curriculum school next door, just to open up possibilities for you and your children.
No, absolutely. And you guys have been ahead of the curve on this for most of the time. And the idea of fixtures for us in Abu Dhabi, if we're honest, is probably next year at this point. But it does make you realize that things can be done in a slightly different way, and there are other ways of doing things, and there are other ways of providing meaningful experiences without having to necessarily continue to do things exactly the way that they've always been done. Wael, you've got your hand up. Do you want to join us?
Yes, please.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome everyone. I'm Coach Wael from ICS Jordan, Amman. I would say our biggest success for this year was the engagement of the children. We all struggled last year with the engagement online. We struggled with asking children to turn their camera on. But when we came back, it was the opposite totally. I mean, before COVID, we all struggled with Key Stage 4 and making sure they're engaged and what sports they want to do. They want to jump immediately to the game. But this year, I was really surprised that whatever you do with them, they'll happily do it. So that was a definitely big thing to see and watch. Something else we practiced this year, just like Sally said, we were not allowed to mix pods, neither do CCAs after school, so we decided to do inter-house competition. I think kids waited for that for too long to play friendly competitions, not looking for results or any of that. They had a great time. So that was something else to maybe merge into our curriculum for the coming years. The last thing I would like to add to this, which is the new sports for us as teachers. I'm a footballer. My friend next to me is a volleyballer. But I can teach boxing now, guys. I can do head training. And that's because of the online we've learned. We all watched different type. We all joined different courses to learn what's head training is, what's Pilates are. And we got improved in this. In addition to our traditional sports, definitely.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And if you've been able to offer those things to your pupils, you've enhanced everything that you've been giving them. So that's great. And it is definitely true, isn't it, that we've all had to step outside of our comfort zones and look at developing ourselves. And one of the real positives for me has been these kind of things, and that these interactions with other PE teachers, the collaboration within the PE community, I think has been a real highlight, and doesn't appear to be something that's going to go away anytime soon, and not something that I'm necessarily seeing in other subject areas. I think, as usual, within schools, PE are sort of driving positivity and driving change and driving collaboration. So that, I think, and that's testament to all of the likes of yourselves for getting out there and talking to people and doing these kind of things. So and hopefully that will last much longer than COVID. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so we're going to do the last one quite quickly, and we've talked a lot about our challenges and the biggest challenges that we're facing. But what I'd really like you to do is to tell us what your biggest challenge is, but also perhaps give a takeaway in terms of how you think you're going to overcome that. So does anybody want to just tell us a little bit about some of the big challenges you currently have and how you think you're going to get over them in moving forward? So I'll give you my one of ours is around swimming. There is an expectation on many of our schools that we deliver swimming as part of our curriculum and part of our extracurricular provision, but the changing around swimming and the movement around swimming pools and the rules around staying COVID safe around the swimming pool has been a real challenge, and that has potentially limited what we've been able to do, which in turn has limited and reduced the engagement levels that we've got. So one of our big challenges here is how we very quickly build our swimming program back up. At the moment, I couldn't honestly tell you that I have a single swimmer that I would be comfortable putting into competition, even if we were allowed to, because I think our levels have dropped quite significantly. And so for me, our biggest challenge is around rebuilding that. And the way that we're going to do that is by having lots of inter-school competition, starting off not particularly competitively, trying to organise fixtures in such a way that they don't feel pressurised to be successful straight away, and not actually looking to go outside of that bubble very quickly and build up our swimming program again effectively from the ground up. So that's one of ours. Does anybody else have any particular challenges they are considering at the moment? So Amber said change of curriculum focus, moving away from predominantly physical outcomes to combine learning objectives through head, hand, heart for a well-being combined. Yeah, absolutely. And Amber will know that this is a big thing with me, because I've spoken to Amber before, and we deliver a concept-based curriculum here. So the kind of things that we've looked at assessing, we've looked at delivering are very much non-sport specific. But yes, I think that the COVID situation and the level of fluidity of COVID has meant that we haven't been able to assess in the same way that we would normally do. And so therefore our curriculum delivery has not necessarily been appropriate or relevant, because we can't assess on very practical skills, because we can't put them into competitive situations. So therefore we can't really deliver something and then assess on it. So let's assess on something else. So I've seen a real significant movement towards this sort of head, hand, heart, or me in PE, concept-based PE, concept-based curriculums. But it is a challenge. It is absolutely a challenge. I don't know how many other schools are having these kind of conversations, but it appears to be at the forefront of what we are talking about in PE at the moment. Wael, you've got your hand up. Jump in, buddy.
Our biggest challenge here is basically not being able to plan for more than a week ahead. Regulations are changing. I don't know really if we're in school tomorrow or not. Cases in Jordan are increasing daily, and there's a good chance that they're going to close school, but we don't know that. So basically planning for, I've got year 8 who just started a basketball unit, but they've just been told to go home because the cases are 10% and above. So they're going home and they're doing online for a week, but we can't do basketball online. So not being able to plan is a bit of a tough one, but we got used to it at this point.
was going to say, hasn't it made you flexible though? Hasn't and you know, I feel like I've improved as a teacher as a result of having to be so flexible and thinking on your feet. Absolutely. Sally, jump in.
Just really to agree, really, that I think the uncertainty in terms of forward planning has been the biggest challenge and will continue to be the biggest challenge. Also, I think well-being, I think, needs to be at the forefront of everybody's mind, and PE obviously has a central role to play in that, and therefore I think moving towards a concept-based curriculum is so important, and going way beyond the physical benefits, but that personal development through PE. But really, just to agree with what you said earlier, Phil, I think the last 2 years has also opened so many doors, and the webinars that have been available, the support through Twitter, and I think we're very lucky in PE that I feel like we are part of a global community now. I think the sort of sharing of resources and ideas, and I hope that the fact that teaching overseas, where it, you know, in the past has made CPD accessibility quite a challenge or very costly, it's just now opened up so many doors, and I think, you know, hopefully lots of positives to take away from that as well.
No, absolutely, I completely concur, and I've learned more in the last 2 months, or 2 years, than I probably have done in a decade, if I'm honest, because I was quite happily plodding along doing the things we've always done, and then we've been forced to step outside of that. So no, I completely agree, and yeah, just share. I think that's the thing. Like Matthew's sharing things on the chat now. Lots of us that are on here are also quite regularly, obviously, on Twitter, connect with each other, because I think that community and that sense of collaboration is probably the thing that will last the longest from this experience. I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to stop there. Hopefully you've heard something today that has either made you feel that you're not in this alone, has given you something to reflect on this evening, and to think about perhaps you could do differently. You've made a connection with somebody that you're now going to go and contact. That would be excellent. Or just generally giving you a sense of community, and we're all in this together, and we will get through it, and give it time, and we'll all be back to something that we sort of remember as normal. What I'd be really interested in is whether you feel that this has been a useful format, because like I said, up until now, these have been very much somebody talks to you, you listen, and then you don't really get the opportunity to engage with each other. I think there's a lot of benefit to this. If you think this has been useful and you think this is perhaps the way these activities should move forward during the rest of the year, then please do feed that back through BSME, or reach out to me, and let me know, and we can build more of this into the program. We will be back to guest speakers for the next session, and we've got quite a few really interesting people coming to talk to us over the next few events. The only other thing I would say is, if you are interested in coming and being a speaker or a presenter on one of these events, then please don't be afraid to come forward and talk to me. I find it's much more relevant when the speakers and the people involved in these are from our region and are actually teachers in the same situations that we're in. So if you fancy it, they're only ever half an hour. They only happen every few months. It's not a huge commitment, but I'm sure everybody would love to hear your story, your thoughts on something, and we can definitely build that in. So again, if you want to get involved, then please just reach out to me, and have a lovely evening. I hope that you are not on distance learning for any longer than you need to be. I hope you get back to something that resembles normality, and hopefully by the time we speak again, we will all be back to the way things were. Fingers crossed. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.